Okay, off we go.
Okay. All right. I hope everyone is regrouped and self-regulated. Okay, so my dog has refused to go to the car, so clearly he still wants to be part of this. I don't know if he knows what he's agreed to, but that's just what it is. So, let's keep going. Now, why are we seeing more reactivity? This is a big word, a big question. I get asked this quite often. Why are there so many more reactive dogs? Why? This didn't happen 20 years ago when I had dogs growing up. This never happened. Why? All right, well, so let's talk about that because it is one of the key topics. So there are three main reasons why, well, these are areas or factors which then can be divided. But so social environments and society in general, genetics, and the environment where they are. So the surroundings, the locations, places where they live. So let's break it down a little bit more. So one of the factors, you'll see that some of these, they're numbered, but they might belong to genetics and social or genetics and environment, etc. So they are all linked to an extent. So one of the first ones is, of course, the changes in breeding practices. I've addressed this here a few times, and these days there is a lot more focus on breeding for looks rather than and popularity as well as profit. So whatever sells more, whatever makes helps you make more money, rather than prioritizing the temperament, the behavior, and the early socialization of the puppies. So of course a lot of it is genetics, which comes down to the temperament of the parents and the line that they come from, and their behaviors too. Because it is quite normal to hear that someone got a dog but they couldn't meet the parents because they were either in a place really far away, or maybe because mum wasn't really good with strangers, or dad was behind the fence barking and growling. So of course that should have been red flags, but by the time they're there and they've already seen the puppies and they're so cute, so I'm just going to take them. But most likely, those puppies will probably have some in them that then will come out, which could be reactivity or it could be aggression. Early life and lack of exposure to the normal world, if there is such thing, and socialization. Now, they are sort of the same but different. Exposing a puppy should start from about 3 weeks old. Now, this does not mean taking the dog for a walk. Of course not, they're 3 weeks old. We're talking about handling them. Helping them understand how to be touched and handled, check their ears, check their body, being exposed to different textures and surfaces. So this is the job of the breeder, of course. This is not someone who's just bought the puppy. However, that doesn't happen very often, because if the breeder isn't experienced or doesn't have dogs that they really need to take consideration to. Sorry, there's just a proud moment now. I'm just going to drop that. He takes a while, but he gets there in the end. So that job belongs to the breeder. So if they don't do it, we're already missing out on work that should have been done really, really early on. Puppies are sold, I've seen more and more puppies being sold at about 16 weeks old these days, so 14, 16, which is quite late because they've now entered their fear period, and which they're starting to get really close to adolescence actually, and so that puppy, the puppyhood has now been spent with the breeder, which most of the times may limit the amount of exposure that they've had to their new environment, to their house, the family members, the neighbors, the streets, etc. So here in New Zealand, it's very common to also see puppies that come from breeders who live rurally. which means that they might have never seen a bus, might have never seen bicycles and runners. And so if they've missed out on all of that exposure to what is considered an urban environment or suburban environment, that means that those puppies are already going to start a bit behind, which means that the likelihood of them exhibiting reactivity down the line is incredibly high. And that's the job that does belong to the breeder most of the times, and of course the puppy owners. Lifestyle changes for humans. I've talked about this a few times in the past too. Of course, our houses have become smaller. We don't have as many big, large properties with a lot of space for them to roam around free and chase the things they want to chase and do the things that they were bred to do. We do have a lot of housing issues. People move houses more often, and so which means that that's a change of environment. So from a very early age, and as an older dog, we work and commute for longer. So we drive more, longer hours, we work longer hours, whether that is at home, because even if it's at home, most of the times we're behind the computer and we're not paying attention to them, or we just have to work outside for those 8 hours plus commuting, which means the dogs are left alone in a smaller, confined area. Not enough time for exercise and mental stimulation. If we work more and we don't really have time for our own mental health and physical health, how are we going to make sure that we have that for our dogs? It is a lot of time, it is a big commitment. And we see it more, at least I personally see it, in winter. When the days are shorter, people have less time, and it's almost like it's so hard to take them out, and it's really difficult to manage that balance, work-life balance, and squeezing our dogs in. The busy social lives and cost of living. So we are busier, kids' sports, family events, so trips away. We are busy doing our lives and things that are part of it. And if we have a dog that we can take with us and who's friendly with everyone, doesn't have any sort of behavior issue that you need to be worrying about, your dog ends up being part of all of that. But if you're dealing with some sort of any kind of reactivity or fear-based issues or aggression, then they are limited because they cannot be part of that. Cost of living means people can't afford things for their dogs as much. So whether that is that they need to go on walks, they need training, they need better food, they need vet care, health addressed, etc., etc. So going back to the layered stress model that Kelly talked about, at the base of it was health. So if we don't address that, whether that is pain and discomfort or even their gut or their skin sensitivities or other allergies that affect their well-being, then that's the first layer that we're not addressing. And that is connected to the financial issues that we're also seeing. Expectations and environmental pressures. There's something that I always have to address in any case that is related to reactivity, is expectations. And I had to go through that myself in regards to my dog. And that can be really tough. We live in a world where modern dogs should be taken to pubs and cafes and be breakfast. I want my dog to be a breakfast dog or a brunch dog, I hear. Well, that's great. Maybe not this dog, because maybe he won't enjoy it. They are meant to be able to go into the busy streets of a city and be fine with the traffic and honking and bicycles and all of that. Not everyone is okay with that. Not every dog is fine with that. And then of course the social media dogs, the ones that we want wearing things and being so pretty and looking so good everywhere, and because they look amazing. And it's social media after all, so we do have to remind ourselves that not all of that is real. And today with AI, to be fair, probably 90% of that is not real. The pandemic impact. So this is something that keeps coming up. Now, it's been 3 years since the end of it, I guess. But we are still seeing some dogs that come from a result of that, even if it's indirectly. Because what happened was, there was a lot of people looking for puppies during lockdowns, especially the second and the third and all of those. I don't know how many there were anymore. But there was more people looking for dogs. So more dogs were acquired, which means that breeders started having more litters because there is a demand. And if there is a demand, we've got a supply. So all of a sudden, we have all these puppies that were born, and some of them were not bought. So they're now in shelters, they're now being rehomed, or they were sort of given away, I guess. Related to the lack of socialization, because we're all stuck at home and we're all locked in or out, I'm not sure, but we're all locked in. So there's often the concept of, oh, I couldn't expose my dog. Well, actually, we could all go for walks. So it is an excuse, but it shouldn't be, because that's where your dog could have been socialized with other dogs without interacting with them. But a lot of people took that as, my poor dog could not be socialized during lockdown, during the pandemic. There was no exposure to normal life, to an extent, I guess, especially if people have busy houses and more relatives visiting. So I guess some of them could have missed out. And higher levels of anxiety and reactivity, especially because of the post-lockdown, we went back to normal life, and then everyone's back at work, so no one's home. We went from being home 100% of the time to not being home 80% of the time. It was in the news in 2022, and it was a report that came from Animal Management in Auckland, and it was basically more dogs than ever, puppies aplenty, adoption opportunities galore, and an increase in badly behaved canines. Pretty harsh words, but yes. So in 2022, there was an increase of the dog population, and with dogs attacked, the dog attacks increasing by 20%. Throughout the years and recently, 2024, there was a report that came out, and that the dog attacks and roaming dogs, the percentage has increased considerably. Overcrowded rescues and rehoming. So maybe I got a dog during lockdown, it was great, it was a puppy, it was really good, now he's got anxiety, got to be rehomed, can't handle it. I've seen it plenty of times too. Doesn't mean it's wrong or right, it is the reality of it. Sometimes rehoming a dog can save a dog, so that's not a bad thing. But what happens is a lot of dogs are taken into an inappropriate environments, whether they were bought from a breeder or even adopted. If the screening wasn't done properly, that dog could be in an environment or with a family or in a home that just does not help their well-being, their welfare, their health, and of course their feelings and their reactions. There are more dogs with challenging temperaments, air quotes of course, difficult past or trauma who are entering houses or homes. We do have this concept that we want to save as many dogs as possible. We want to help as many dogs as possible. We don't want dogs to be in shelters or to be put to sleep, but it's really important that we really connect the right dog to the right environment, because otherwise the consequence will be reactivity and even potentially aggression. So aggressive behavior. There is an increased awareness in labeling. So this is not so much a factor, a contributor, but it is the fact. It's not necessarily contributing to the increase, but more people are using the word. Again, it's not wrong or right. It's just that instead of saying that my dog's really nervous, or he's just a little bit angry, or he's a bit scared, people just use, oh, he's reactive. So I guess to an extent, okay. Reactive as in the dog reacts in a way towards something that he finds he has a feeling or an emotion towards, and that's fine to use the word. However, it shouldn't just label it like Kelly said. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Tony.